Welcome back to Golden Blue Dude, everybody. I am Golden Blue Dude. Please consider hitting that like and subscribe button. I do videos every single day. Most of the time it's college football, but now that college basketball is rolling around, I want to put out some college basketball videos. Joe Lunardi puts out his Bracketolegy brackets. Sometimes I like him and I agree with him, and sometimes I don't quite like them and I disagree with them. So I want to do a comparison video. I'm going to give you Joe Lunardi's brackets as they look today. Then I'm going to give you my brackets, and I'll let you choose which brackets you like the most. Now, I'm not going to describe, all the great wins, quad 1s, 2s, and 3s, bad losses, all that stuff. This is not a resume comparing video. This is just bracket comparing video. Once we get closer to March Madness, then we'll start doing resume comparison videos. So here's Joe Lunardi's Bracketolegy brackets. I mean, he goes a little farther than what I do. So last 4 byes, that's Marquette, Florida, Mississippi State, and St. Mary's. And those are the last 4 teams that made it into the tournament and don't have to play in the play-in games. Last 4 in, Wake Forest, Memphis, Virginia Tech, and UAB. Those 4 made it into the tournament, but they have to play in the play-in games. First 4 out, Minnesota, Louisville, St. Bonaventure, and Clemson. Those are the first 4 teams that didn't make the tournament. And then the next 4 out, UCF, Michigan, TCU, and Texas A&M. That's the next batch. So here's how Joe Lunardi's brackets look right now. In the South, the number 1 overall seed, Baylor. They would play the 16th seed, the winner of Coppin State and William and Mary. The 8-9 matchup, BYU versus Iowa. The 5-12 matchup, Kentucky versus the winner of Wake Forest and Memphis. The 4-13 matchup, Houston versus Ohio. The 6-11 matchup, Texas versus Marquette. The 3-14 matchup, LSU versus Wagner. The 7-10 matchup, UConn versus Miami, Florida. The 2-15 matchup, Purdue and Cleveland State. On to the East region. The 1 seed, UCLA taking on the 16 Gardner-Webb, the 8 seed North Carolina taking on the 9 seed Davidson, the 5 seed Ohio State taking on the 12 seed Iona, the 4 seed Alabama taking on the 13 seed South Dakota State, the 6 seed Providence taking on the 11 seed Florida. What? The 3 seed Michigan State taking on the 14 seed UC Irvine, the 7 seed Texas Tech taking on the 10 seed Belmont, and the 2 seed Duke versus the 15 seed Nichols. Really, the only name in that one that I don't understand is Florida. That they have no reason to be in the tournament at all. I don't understand that at all. On to the West region. The 1 seed Gonzaga taking on the 16 seed Southern. The 8 seed West Virginia taking on the 9 seed Colorado State. The 5 seed Xavier taking on the 12 seed, the winner of Virginia Tech and UAB. The 4 seed Illinois taking on the 13 seed New Mexico State. The 6 seed Tennessee taking on the 11 seed St. Mary's. The 3 seed Villanova taking on the 14 seed Navy. The 7 seed Oklahoma taking on the 10 seed San Francisco. And the 2 seed Arizona taking on the 15 seed Weber State. On to the Midwest, because I don't really have any issues with that one. The number 1 seed Auburn taking on the 16 seed, the winner of NJIT in Central Arkansas. The 8 seed Indiana taking on the 9 seed San Diego State. The 5 seed Iowa State taking on the 12 seed Chattanooga. The 4 seed Wisconsin taking on the 13 seed Louisiana Tech. The 6 seed Seton Hall taking on the 11 seed Mississippi State. I'm not sure about that one. The 3 seed USC taking on the 14 seed Princeton. The 7 seed Loyola Chicago taking on the 10 seed Creighton. And the 2 seed Kansas taking on the 15 seed Louisiana. Yeah, the biggest issue that I have is Mississippi State. I don't see them being in the tournament right now. So there was Joe Lunardi's brackets. Now time to look at Gold and Blue Dudes brackets. And yes, they are very different. Not as far as teams being in it, but seedings and some teams being in it. Now let's get into my actual brackets. First, the bubble teams. The teams that I don't have quite in the tournament right now, but they're close. Colorado, they're 11-3 right now. They're close, but I don't think they're in right now. Liberty has some work to do. Decent record, 11-6, but they're in the Sun Belt, so they need a lot of help. SMU, 12-4. VCU, 10-4. The committee really likes VCU every year, so at least they have that going for them. But they have a lot to do. Louisville, they're 10-6. They're in the ACC, so they have plenty of opportunities to gain some good wins. Same thing with Florida State. They're 9-5. I don't. Clemson, 10-6. They got some work to do. Plenty of opportunities in ACC. Rutgers, out of the Big Ten, they're 9-6. Utah State, out of the Mountain West, 10-6. I think Utah State is capable of winning the Mountain West. I just don't have them doing that right now. Stanford, 9-4 out of the Pac-12. And then finally, South Carolina out of the SEC. Their record, 10-5. A lot of opportunities ahead of them to pad their resume as well. Now let's move on to the first 4 out. These are the teams that barely missed the cut. The first team, Notre Dame. Their record 10-5. They're going to have plenty of chances, plenty of opportunities to get those wins that they need to get into the tournament. And they're not that far out. The next team, Toledo, 12-4. I think Toledo is capable of winning the MAC, and they probably will have to win the MAC to get in, but I still have them on my first 4 out. Mississippi State, 11-4. This is one of the teams that Joe Lunardi has in the big dance right now. I wouldn't have them in there. They're close, though. The next team, Minnesota. Their record, 10-5. They have a lot of work to do, but they're close. They're close, and they play in the Big Ten, so plenty of opportunities. Next 4 out, the next layer of teams that don't make it right now. Arkansas out of the SEC, 11-5. I do think Arkansas is a good team, so they actually have a real chance of making it, but right now, not quite enough on their resume. Next up, Boise State, 11-4 out of the Mountain West. The Mountain West is going to be a good conference in basketball this year. It already is. So the Mountain West will provide these teams a lot of opportunities to have good wins to get into the big dance. Next up, Louisiana Tech out of Conference USA. They're 13-3 right now. Some people have them winning Conference USA. Right now, I have UAB, but it wouldn't surprise me if Louisiana Tech won Conference USA. And finally, Fresno State. Back to the Mountain West. They're 11-4. Plenty of opportunities to pick up some wins to get into the big dance. All right, now let's talk about the teams that are actually in my brackets right now. In the South, the number 1 overall seed, Baylor, 15-1. They'll be taking on the 16th seed, the winner of UC Irvine and Southern. The 8th seed, West Virginia, my Mountaineers, 13-2. I have them taking on the 9th seed, Miami of Florida, who's 13-4. The 5 seed, Ohio State, who's 10-3. They're going to take on the 12th seed, the winner of UAB and Texas A&M. That would be an interesting game. I think that's a good matchup right there. The 4 seed, Texas Tech, 12-3. They would take on the 13th seed, Texas A&M Corpus Christi, who's 13-4. 6th seed Tennessee, 11-4 right now, taking on the 11th seed Marquette, who's 11-6. I think Marquette's a sneaky good team. The 3 seed Duke, who's 13-2, taking on the 14th seed Princeton, 12-2. I know Joe Lunardi has Duke in a higher seed than I do. The 7th seed Alabama, 11-5 right now, taking on the 10th seed Creighton, 10-4. And finally, the 2 seed LSU, 15-1, would take on the 15th seed Florida Gulf Coast, 11-5 out of the ASUN. Now on to the East region. The 1 seed UCLA, 10-1 right now. They'll take on the 16th seed, the winner of UNC Asheville and Vermont. The 8th seed Davidson, 13-2, taking on the 9th seed Indiana, 12-3. The 5 seed Villanova, 12-4, taking on the 12th seed Murray State, 12-2. I know Joe Lunardi definitely has Villanova as a higher seed. But right now, I'm feeling Villanova as a 5 seed. I think they're a bit overrated. The 4 seed Wisconsin, they're 13-2. They're taking on the 13th seed Grand Canyon, who's 12-2 in these brackets. The 6th seed Seton Hall, 11-3, taking on the 11th seed San Diego State, 10-3. The 3 seed Houston, 14-2 out of the AAC, taking on the 14th seed Delaware, who's 11-5 right now. The 7th seed Oklahoma out of the Big 12, 12-4 right now, would take on the 10 seed Iowa, who's out of the Big 10, who's 10-4 right now. That would be a good matchup. The 2 seed Arizona, 12-1 right now, would take on the 15 seed Navy, who's 11-4, and they're out of the Patriot. On to the West region. The 1 seed Kansas, 13-2 right now, would take on the 16 seed Wagner, who's 8-2. The 8 seed UConn, 11-4 right now out of the Big East, taking on the 9 seed San Francisco, who's 14-2 out of the West Coast Conference, and they have beaten Gonzaga, by the way. The 5 seed Kentucky, 13-3, taking on the 12 seed New Mexico State, who's 13-2 right now. The 4 seed Iowa State out of the Big 12, they're 13-3. They would be taking on the 13 seed South Dakota State, who's 13-4 right now. The 6 seed Colorado State, 12-1 out of the Mountain West, would take on the 11 seed North Carolina, who's 11-4 and out of the ACC. The 3 seed USC, 13-1 out of the Pac-12, taking on the 14 seed Montana State, who's 12-5 right now. The 7 seed Illinois, 11-3 right now, taking on the 10 seed San Diego State, who's 10-3 out of the Mountain West. The 2 seed Gonzaga, who's 12-2 right now. No, I don't have them as a 1 seed right now. They would be taking on the 15 seed Oakland, who's 11-4. And finally, the last region, the Midwest region. The 1 seed Auburn out of the SEC, the best team in the SEC right now. They're 15-1. They would take on the 16 seed Norfolk State, who's 10-4. The 8 seed Loyola Chicago, who's 12-2, taking on the 9 seed BYU, who's 14-3. The 5 seed Providence, sneaky good team out of the Big East, who's 14-2 right now. They would take on the 12 seed, the winner of Ohio, who's 13-2, and Louisiana Tech. The 4 seed Michigan State, they're 14-2, taking on the 13 seed Chattanooga, who's 13-4. The 6 seed Xavier out of the Big East, they're 12-2, and they would take on the 11 seed TCU, who's 11-2. The 3 seed Purdue out of the Big Ten, they're 13-2 right now, taking on the 14 seed Iona, who has a record of 12-3. The 7 seed Texas out of the Big 12, who's 13-3 right now, they would take on the 10 seed Wake Forest out of the ACC, who's 13-4 right now. And finally, the 2 seed Arizona out of the Pac-12, 12-1 right now, taking on the 15 seed Troy. They're 12-5 as of right now. So there you go, Joe Lunardi's brackets and Golden Blue Dude's brackets. Which one do you think is closer to reality right now? I can't wait for March Madness, and when it gets closer, we'll start doing resume comparisons. Blind resume comparisons. That's all I got for you for this show. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you on my next show.